Hi, my name is Lucia Harrison, and I'm an artist living in Tacoma, Washington. For many years, I have been concerned about threats to native fish and wildlife caused by habitat loss and fragmentation. I want to highlight and encourage efforts to restore and connect native plant habitats for wildlife, culture, and human health. For the Science Stories exhibition, I created a website and a series of Pacific Northwest native plant magic books. I believe that art can move the hearts and minds of people for conservation. I use art to highlight the relationships between native plants and animals with the hope that people will be excited to observe and create. Each magic book features my drawings of a native plant and the wildlife that depends upon them during different seasons. Currently, books about three different plants are available: red flowering currant, vine maple, and salal. Each book also contains a hidden pocket, the book's magic feature, that holds information about the focal plant and the animals that depend upon it. A printable black and white version of each book encourages you to identify the features of each plant and animal by hand coloring the images and conducting research using the website. The Native Plant Image Library features photos and my drawings of the plant during its life cycle. The pages also include the common Lashute Coast Salish and scientific names for the plant. You can use the images as a visual references for hand coloring and find resources for further study. The Animal Image Library also includes visual references, brief information about each bird, insect, and mammal, and referrals to websites that feature audio and video recordings and more detail about the wildlife. The materials to make the books are easy to download and assemble. Access to website materials is free for educational, non commercial purposes. I grew up roaming the forests and beaches along Cooper Point in Olympia, Washington. My deep attachment to the land has grown over 65 years. I learned to recognize and name native plants and animals by keeping a nature journal and creating and planting native gardens. I grew concerned as forests gave way to housing developments and new neighbors replaced their forest understories with grass and then suffocated the roots of trees with their power mowers. For me, observing seasonal changes as plants form leaves, flowers, fruits, and cones invites me to look forward to the gifts of each season. Learning about the life cycle of butterflies and watching birds arrive after long migrations, feed, build nests, and teach their young is awe inspiring. Native plants provide food, shelter, and nesting sites for local wildlife. They also keep our streams shaded, and their fallen leaves provide food for the invertebrates that salmon feed on. Native plants are crucial for sustaining biodiversity through their support of more insects, which are important pollinators of our food and a key element in the food chain upon which we all depend. The website parallels my journey. The Native Plant Animal Resource page suggests locations in South Puget Sound where you can see and learn about native plants and wildlife. It includes references that teach you how to draw and keep a nature journal. Once you've made an observation, it's useful to confirm them by using field guides and websites. My website directs you to these references. In 2003, after a house fire, I moved to Tacoma. I immediately tried to reproduce the native habitats of Cooper Point in my yard so I could feel at home. I use them as visual reference for my plant drawings. The website's resource page suggests resources for helping you create or enhance your backyard, school, or neighborhood with native plants. There are also resources for volunteering with local organizations and doing citizen science. There are practical and ecological arguments for gardening with native plants. Native plants are adapted to our unusual climate where we have a really high rainfall in the winter months and a summer drought. Once established, native plants require little to no water, which means there'll be more water in our streams for salmon. They can reduce the need to weed, mow, and rake. They don't need added fertilizers and chemicals, which can drift beyond our neighborhoods to damage Puget Sound. This is healthier for children and pets. In addition to the practical and ecological arguments, there are cultural reasons for preserving and restoring native plant habitats. While many of us are newcomers, people have been living here for over 8,000 years. Ancestors of the Puyallup, Nisqually, and Chehalis watersheds shared their knowledge of native plants and animals with subsequent generations. This knowledge defines Pacific Northwest traditions, values, and character. Especially for these groups, this land and all of the life it generates is not just a commodity to be bought and sold, but instead it's their identity, their relatives. For newcomers who have taken the time to learn about native plants and animals, these resources are our identity too, helping us to feel connected to the land. We have an obligation to think about the future. Will our grandchildren have the opportunity to observe native plants and animals and to learn about the unique character of the Pacific Northwest? Think about the world of freeways, high rises, endless strip malls, parking lots, and concrete. Contrast these places to the ones in which you find beauty and inspiration. How do you feel when walking along the trails at the Billy Frank Jr. Nisqually National Wildlife Refuge, at Point Defiance Park, or at McLean Creek? How do you feel pausing during a beautiful meadow of wildflowers at Mount Rainier? Think of the healthful relief these natural places have given us during this pandemic. But why do we feel we must go to these places? Why not create the same beauty in our own neighborhood? I created this website and the Native Plant Magic books to help you use art to create a deeper relationship with the beautiful plants and animals of the Pacific Northwest. I welcome suggestions about my project, and I wish you well as you explore and create.